Welcome, everyone. My name is Rupal Shah. I'm with the Canadian Urban Institute, and I'm pleased to be welcoming you to what is our final session of CUI Victoria, an initiative that CUI has undertaken in partnership with the City of Victoria and the Victoria Foundation. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we are holding this meeting today on the homelands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples and the Songhees and Esquimalt peoples. Through CUI Local, we are connecting with communities across Canada to gather data, priorities, bright spots, and stories from on-the-ground voices to help deepen our collective understanding of current urban trends and concerns. CUI is in Victoria all this week, learning about local issues and connecting those issues to national trends to help strengthen the connective tissue within and across communities from coast to coast to coast. For those of you who don't know CUI, we are Canada's Urban Institute. We're a national platform that houses the best in Canadian city building, where policies, urban professionals, civic leaders, business leaders, community activists, and academics and more can learn, share, and collaborate with one another. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping notes. These sessions will be recorded, including the chat. The chat will also be saved. These sessions at CUI Victoria are all grounded in the Vital Signs Report, which was recently released by the Victoria Foundation. And one of my colleagues will drop the link to the report in this chat in case anybody is interested in learning more. And if you would like to use the closed captioning function, you can look to the bottom of the screen or ask for some help in the chat box and someone will get back to you right away. So I'd also like to now pass over the session to Councillor Dubois, the moderator, who will take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome everybody. And I want to begin by acknowledging that I'm also joining you from the City of Victoria, which is on the Lekwungen People Trust territory, and where I'm chatting from, on the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanix people, whose historical relationship with the land continue to this day, and including to those of us who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly as the result of the transatlantic slave trade. And we do make this acknowledgement not as some sort of historical footnote, but a commitment to a true and lasting reconciliation with Indigenous people. And we've seen that the pandemic really challenged our communities, but also highlighted the where the gaps are and the inequities that exist in our community. And it made governments, it challenged governments to really think how to uplift everyone and not to leave anyone behind, and also look at the short-term and long-term and activities and goals to address underlying systematic inequities. So today we gathered, and I'm excited to be with you and to chair this session. But before I introduce the panelists, who are my colleagues and friends that we've been working about a year now, I just want to give a bit of a historical context of why we're here and when this work started. So this council was elected 2018, and we had an exercise to really look the 4 years, 2018 to 2022, what priorities do we want to have as a city. And as we were brainstorming the strategic plan for the council and for the city, one of the priorities was to create a welcome city. And through that was to really build a strategy under the health and well-being and goal for the city. And in the spring 2022, Council approved the terms of reference for the Welcoming City Task Force. And the composition of the task force included 11 agencies and 4 members at large. And the purpose of the task force was to develop a welcome city strategy to really provide advice and recommendation to Victoria City Council and staff. And the City of Victoria Task Force included two appointed by the First Nation, the Songhees Nation, and the Squamish. Then other organizations such as the Bahaian Cultural Center, Chinese Community Services, George J. School, Greater Victoria Public Library, Here Magazine, Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria, the Frankfurt de Victoria, Silver Threads, Victoria Immigrant, and members at large, youth, international students. And the idea was to bring all these folks together to work. And just reading by the Welcome in America, which we mimicked and see what works for our city, what the statement, one of the statements they have is around the world, communities are changing and issues are changing. And when managed effectively, democratic changes can lead to increased cultural vibrancy, new perspective, talent, and greater prosperity for all. And when not managed effectively, however, these changes could lead to community tensions, lost potential with newcomers, less likely to contribute their talent and skills to the broader community. So the idea was Victoria residents to really, with the stakeholders, to define what welcome city means to us, and then create efforts to really remove and break down barriers and increase access and leverage key contributions by all people, and especially immigrants. So the focus also was to really look at the reconciliation as well and put it front and center. And that's why 2 nations were appointed and really looking on how we welcome people to these lands and to this territory through prioritizing the goals, objective, and practice highlighted by, by the indigenous nations and actors, but also to increase that relationship. So things we were looking at was inclusivity, resilience, connection, but more importantly, just to conclude for the Welcome City, which Trish would speak more, was what places describe themselves as welcoming. And when you look at the Welcome in America, you would see they have standards, and we use that standards, but really tailored to our community, because one size doesn't fit all. The one size fits all doesn't work, and so we have to see what works for us. So the standards was government leadership, equitable access, engagement, connected community, education, and economic and development, and safe communities. So I will leave it there, but before then I will come back and we will have more informal discussion. So this is not your typical panelist. This is more people reflecting and having that conversation. Then we'll give you as audience to ask questions and if you have reflections. So we will begin giving a chance each one of the task force to really introduce themselves, who they are, and what do they do, and what role they play in the community. So, and I would start with the consultants. Maybe Trish, if you want to introduce yourself, who you are, and what do you do, and give a little bit context of yourself before we dive into it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Councillor Bowe. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Trish. My partner, Rachel Supersad, and I were engaged by the City of Victoria to develop this welcoming city strategy for them. We worked with the council-appointed task force, which Councillor DeBow and Mayor Helps co-chaired, and the folks around the table were members as well. So grateful to be part of that team, and thank you for the journey that we've been on with you. So as Councillor DeBow mentioned, we were asked to assess Victoria against welcoming standard. The welcoming standard consists of the 7 categories that he had mentioned, and within those categories are indicators and requirements. And really the purpose of that is to create a framework that is a reference point in which you can follow to create a community-based roadmap, again, that's very specific to Victoria. So our role as consultants was really to ask questions, listen, observe, analyze, synthesize the input and feedback from Victorians. And that was around what currently exists, what is working, and what needs improving to foster a community of that is compassionate and neighborly, where newcomers are accepted, respected, valued, and encouraged to participate in civic life. My role, again, as a consultant is to listen and learn and to facilitate those conversations, create a space where everybody is welcomed, and do this work for Victoria. So thank you.
Thank you, Trish, and it has been really inspiring to work along with you and learn with you as we work with the community. So I will go to Chris. Could you tell us a bit about who you are and to what context you come to this work?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor DeBow. My name is Carice Brown, and I am the Director of Operations and Project Management at Here in Canada. Here in Canada is a not-for-profit organization dedicating to helping newcomers, immigrant communities enjoy meaningful participation in society. Now, we at Here in Canada, we meet newcomers where they are. So
Chris, sorry to interrupt you. Could you speak a little bit louder so that...
I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries. Technology. So go on.
Okay. Is it a little better now? Okay. So we meet newcomers where they are to address beyond settlement needs that also explore the complex issue of belonging. So how do newcomers to Victoria find community? How do they participate in programs that help them feel like they belong? And I was able to offer that perspective to the Welcoming City Task Force, because as a newcomer myself in the past couple of years, I moved to Victoria from Jamaica in 2018, and I experienced some of the challenges that we brought to the table to address at the Welcoming Cities Task Force. So that was my contribution, and I really learned quite a bit. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have participated, and I'm really thankful for the initiative of on the part of the city to endeavor to make Victoria a welcoming city.
Thank you, Chris, and your contribution and getting to know you more was also really good, and being able to continue to do this work with you. And Daniela, could you tell us a bit of who you are as a person, and then to what context do you come to this work?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor DeBow. I hope you guys can hear me well. So my name is Daniela Pinto. I am originally from Brazil, and I moved to Victoria 8 years ago in 2013 with as a single mom with 2 kids. So it was very challenging for me to arrive in Victoria and to realize that I didn't have a community for myself, and also to raise my kids in community. So I started to engage with the community through the university. So within the university, I started to participate in welcoming activities and community building activities. And through a research project, I participated in the local immigration partnership strategic plan, which was one initiative brought from one of the settlement organizations here in Victoria. It was when I realized that there was so many options and so many opportunities to help newcomers here in the city, but that I never had access to them. So I started to get engaged with more community building and community connections activities throughout the city, not only through the university. And then I applied to participate at the Welcoming City Task Force as a member at large. So my contribution to this roundtable comes from my lived experiences, and the lived experience, not only mine, but from my kids and their integration in school, and other international students and their integration during the school years and after their graduation at the job market here in Victoria. So my contribution to this task force is by listening to the community and bringing what are the current community needs and opportunities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. And truly, we've done a lot of listening, the community as well, through all those workshops and sessions, which we will get into it later. Noura, and yeah, please tell us a bit about yourself and to what context do you come to this work?
Sure. My name is Noura Butts, and I actually immigrated to Canada as a very young child, 5 years old. And so many, many years ago, and I grew up in Victoria. And so I'm not new to Victoria, having been here all my life. But when people meet me and see me, they still treat me as a newcomer. So it kind of makes me want to do something for newcomers, because no matter if you're new here or been here for years or decades, we still need to connect and, find each other. So when I was approached to organize a community center in Victoria, Victoria had not had a Chinese community center ever. And so in 2019, we got together and did some fundraising, and we opened this community center all through fundraising and by ourselves. It's all through volunteers. So we started this Chinese community center on Harold Street, 655 Harold Street, and we opened it in 2019. What we have done is we are a service center so that we can assist newcomers, seniors, people that have been here for years but can't speak the language. So some of the services that we provide is we do IT services, like if people don't know how to use their iPad or iPhones, they can come for one-on-one help every Monday. And then on Tuesdays, we have calligraphy classes. And then we have Chinese seniors that come to learn English, just conversational and stuff, how to get around the city and not having to learn ESL, which is very difficult for them. So we do that. Then as well, we give assistance when people come to us and say they need help with their banking, or they need an interpreter or an advocate because they were mistreated with some tradespeople. We always go and help them. As well, we give seminars on an assortment of topics, including health and welfare. Like we've had optometrists come and talk about eye care. We've had lawyers come and talk about how to do your will and the trusts and stuff like that. So as well, we felt that some of the seniors and other people that needed a place to come and just talk to somebody and have a cup of coffee or tea, so that we have been able to provide that. And through that service center, I was invited to join the task force, which has been very, very enlightening for me, because I realized that there's so many other societies and agencies in the city, like we didn't even know that there were all these people out there doing things that we would like to do ourselves, but we didn't know that we could assist, our people to go find these agencies. So that was really enlightening. It just shows us that there is a lot of help in Victoria, but we didn't know how to access it. And I think a lot of people are in that same situation, that they need to find something, but they don't know where to look. And so, being a service center, we can point them in the right direction. And I'm grateful for the other agencies for being there. So that's my contribution to the task force.
Thank you, Nora. And I do agree the concept of relationship, the concept of, this work is for all of us in terms of how much work that needs to be done, but also that this project is not just City of Victoria, or not just a government initiative or government strategy and project, but is more collaboratively developed actually, as you all are part of the task force and all the workshops we've done, and implement the project with ethnocultural, with libraries and settlement agencies, with folks with lived experience, First Nations, and businesses, and also the cultural associations and members, residents. So it is a work that, as you were saying, Nora, how do we get away from the silo policies and create more coherence, collaborative initiatives that really benefits everyone. And to me, that was the testimony of listening and working with you, because myself as a former refugee, we come in a different reasons in this country. And as in my opening remarks, some of us might have been here 100 years ago, and some of us might come yesterday, but at the end of the day, is how do we, looking at the Welcome City, the concept of, being in welcome is more than, they say, it's more than being friendly. And of course, Victoria is friendly, and is more than being intolerant or peaceful. And the concept they say is that, and this is not my words, but the other communities who are pushing for welcoming initiatives, that we believe that truly welcoming places have intentional, inclusive policy, practices, and norms that enable all residents to live, thrive, and contribute fully, including immigrants. So welcoming places are possible by welcoming people, leaders, including immigrants themselves. And that's what this task force started laying the bricks. So coming back to you, Trish, how could you speak more? You've alluded at earlier remarks how you and Rachel were hired by the city to co-create. Could you speak about the strategy and the action plan and what that meant for you to co-create with the task force, but also the residents of Victoria?
Yes, thank you. Yes, and I want to build on what we're talking about related to the welcoming standard, because the welcoming standard is based on the philosophy that if there are policies, practices, programs in place that ensure newcomers feel welcome to community, that by default, the community will be better off. And it's really building on how do you support newcomers and bring long-time residents together with government to make it at a local level. So I think you've touched on a couple of really important points, and that is that this settlement is about supporting newcomers, whereas welcoming is really extends to the activity of the receiving community. It involves the receiving community as well. And I think this is a really important piece to remember. And it's not simply something that government does. It is something that government supports and does in partnership. And it takes the community to do this. So our strategy in working all along was really to ensure that we modeled what was welcoming, that we listened, that we created opportunities for honest conversations and the awkward, difficult conversations. The task force from day one, I said, you know what, I don't know what I don't know. I came to Victoria in 2019 from Alberta. So yes, I'm not Victoria, but I came to the island in 2019 from Alberta. So this was new. I have some similar experiences, but I will never know what other people's lived experiences are. And it was really important that we had the people with the lived experiences in the room and in the conversations. And it was hearing from them what it looked like, what the future looked like to be more welcoming for Victoria, and how could we build out a strategy that reflected the community vision, and how could we have community outcomes in our action plan that said, you know what, these are our desired goals. As we go along in implementation, they may need to be tweaked, they may need to be adjusted, they may need to be redone, because that's the nature of the work. It is relationship based, it is human interaction, it's about connectivity. It's not a checklist that says you do these 20 things, and when you're done the 20 things, ta-da, you're welcoming. It really is that iterative process of inclusivity and really thinking about what it feels like to belong, and what are we doing, and what are we all accountable for doing to make a community more welcoming.
Thank you, Trish. And if anyone could share the strategy and the action plan in the chat room, you would be able to see that this is more like a roadmap of trying to really setting the bricks to create equitable, inclusive, diverse community. And again, so we were saying, it takes everyone to play a role. And for instance, someone who's elected an official on the council, one of the things we look is when people interact with city services, do they have a positive experience? That itself creates welcoming. And if I access the recreational services or parking services, so whatever from policing services, fire, whatever services the city is delivering, and if I interface with that service, could I walk away feeling like I have been done justice and I had a positive experience? That's one aspect of it. And the other aspect is building partnership. As you will look the action plan and the strategy, it takes a village to do this work, and it's not only the government. So going back to you, Noura, when you joined you heard about the task force, and at the beginning it might sound abstract, right? Welcoming city strategy. And so when you joined and now, what has shifted for you in terms of how you see this work?
Well, I think that it changes your focus on what we should be doing. At first, we were just providing services and waiting for clients to show up. But with joining the task force and realizing that there's an action plan, that we really need to take action, because if we don't reach out to people, they don't even know we're there. So as part of our action plan, we thought we would reach out to the newest newcomers to Victoria, and that would be targeting the foreign students, the ones that come here to study. And most of them, we realize after their studies, if they find work, they try to stay. And then we found out in researching this that a lot of them are postgraduate students. They come to get their MBAs and stuff, and they're bringing their families. So the whole families are coming under the student program, and their families, and they have children, and they need help and stuff like that. So we thought we would reach out to them. And the perfect opportunity arose in September. It was a Chinese festival called the Mid-Autumn Festival, where we celebrate the autumn moon in the lunar calendar. And so we created a poster that with QR codes, and we posted it at UVic, Camosun College, and Royal Roads, and to target these students, to invite them to come to the community center and share with us, like longtime residents attended as well, share with us what it's like to live in Victoria and what assistance that we can give them, how they can access services and stuff like that. So we celebrated with moon cakes and traditional Chinese pastries and things, and it gave them an opportunity to find out they could actually belong to the community and not just come here as students and be isolated. So, and in doing that, we also had lots and lots of questions during these events. We got to meet them and talk to them and see what their aspirations were. And they were very interested in finding different ways of immigrating and settling in Victoria. So as a follow-up to this, we are going to put on a seminar for them. And again, we did another poster which tells them what we're going to do with the seminar, also with QR codes. And the reason we have QR codes is because of COVID, we needed them to register. We only have a limited space. We couldn't have too many. And so we're having the seminar, we're having our lawyer come and speak to them and telling them like what requirements they need, what to get status, what kind of jobs they need to get and stuff like that. And we'll explain all the rules to them that they may not understand. And some people think they can just make a big investment and they can stay, and that's not the rule anymore. It's changed. So then our second speaker is going to be a Chinese realtor who understands their needs and what they're looking for. And this realtor is going to give their insights on where to get housing, because that's a huge problem in Victoria because it's such a tight market, and where they can rent or purchase. And we'll give them, lots of guidance in that. So we think that's the way of going to, make them feel like that they can accomplish something by staying here. And so then of course they'll have Q&A for the lawyers and the realtor. And so and we're doing that next Saturday, as a matter of fact, on the 23rd of October. So I think the big thing about the welcoming strategy is to follow through. Like if you're going to do it, you do it, and then you follow through with whatever it is that you plan on doing. But that's just one of the actions, of the many actions that are recommended in the action plan. So we decided to pick one to start with. But we need other agencies to share what they are doing, so they would give us ideas, because there's no sense reinventing the wheel. Because if they're successful, they should share what they're finding out, let us know, then we can have the same programs. And I think with the Welcoming City Task Force, it's a wonderful place to share, because that's where we can connect and find out what we're doing. Otherwise, we would be in an island all by ourselves, and other people wouldn't know. and I wouldn't know what another agency is doing. So this way, it's this connection that we really need. And the task force was the perfect place for us. And it's just, it takes a community to make a city.
Yeah, true that. I agree with you, Nora. It takes a community to make a city. And the aspect of, the partnership and not recreating the wheel and finding out what resources and activities and programs exist so that you make the information to access more. Going back to you, and Trish, one of the research that you find of frustration was access of information. Could you speak on that? Because that was one of the findings.
Yeah, that was a really big one. And you're hearing it already today, that there's a lot of great information out there. There's a lot of great programs out there. This is one of my discoveries, that unexpected discovery in the project, is that there's a lot of great information in Victoria. There's a lot of support in Victoria. But how to find it often is based on word of mouth. So for a newcomer, you have to talk to the right person, find the right person, talk to the right person, and B, you need to be brave enough to ask what you need and to go look for that support. And we do know that when anybody comes to a new community, there's that sense of uncertainty and little anxiety and fear, and that you're in kind of a vulnerable place. So to have information that you can get easily, that's easily accessible, and it's up to date and it's coordinated information, is really, really important for Victoria. We heard that consistently from day one, that we know it's out there, just don't know how to access. We've heard these great programs, and sometimes it's before or after, and really removing any barriers that there might be. So language barrier to get access to that, a physical barrier, a technology barrier. So creating it in a place where people know can easily find it. They don't need to go find somebody who has the information. But I'm going to continue to go back tonight to the other side of it, and that is the receiving community and the role of the receiving community and this collective accountability, that there are a lot of great things happening, and to build on those great things. And if you hear of them and you know that there's potentially somebody in the community that's new, it's the act of reaching out. It's the act of saying, you know what, I realize that there's not a lot of new people on the street. And instead of walking by them, I'm going to go up and I'm going to knock on their door and say, hey, do you know where the local grocery store is? Or if you're at work and you're in the elevator and you see somebody brand new, say, if you're in an elevator, be honest. But if you're in your work environment, you know somebody's new, what are those things that we know when we're there that nobody else knows? So it's that side of welcoming. It's that side that brings community and belonging. And that's really what we're talking about here. So information sharing about everything, and inclusion for belonging, for the sense of belonging, belongs to all of us. It's all of our accountability.
Thank you, Trish, very much. And yes, there are a lot of programs and amazing organizations and agencies that day in, day out does a lot of work to really make our communities better and increase the integration of newcomers. For instance, one program that I ran when I worked at the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria was to match government-assisted refugees with long-term residents. And I was impressed, because I had to screen the volunteers, that I will meet retired judge, students mid-college, all types of people really want to help the strangers in our community. And the program is to take them to the library and show them day-to-day activity. So I want to give shout out to Intercultural Association, Here Magazine, Works, and all Ethnocultural, the library. So yes, there are a lot of organizations that doing important work. And as I said earlier, this strategy is a roadmap for the city and for the community so that we create more equitable and inclusive and diverse community. Daniela, and when you came on to this roadmap or shaping this roadmap, could you share of your journey on being in part of building the bricks for this roadmap, and how did it really impacted you personally, and where were some things that at the beginning and today that you saw some change of, not change, but some realization of our community after undertaking this, building this roadmap?
Thank you, Councilor Dubois. I will build also on what Nora said and what Trish said, that as a newcomer to Victoria, it's very hard to find, at the beginning of your journey here, it's very hard to find friends to have a coffee and to share a tea with, or to find a safe space to make the weird questions like, where do I get my driver license? Or those day-to-day questions that when you arrive here is so hard to find. As Trish said, that's lots of services and opportunities in the city, but the best way to get access to those services once you are a newcomer is to have a friendly hand to bring you to those services, to introduce you to that opportunity, or to provide you the confidence and the safety to go to a place and understand whatever the other person is telling you to do because of the language barriers. So this was something that I faced when I arrived here as a single mom with 2 kids. For me, that specific contest was very hard, because it was hard for me to go to a place and having to carry 2 kids with me, or going to a workshop at the city, again, with 2 kids with me, and without money to pay for a nanny for both of them. So at the beginning, it was very hard for me to access those services because of the context itself. So once I started participating in the Welcoming City Task Force, I realized that there was a big wave of new Brazilians immigrating to Victoria, and those Brazilians, they had families as well. So what me and a group of Brazilians also did was start to unite our forces and to support those newcomers from our cultural group to better integrate here in the city, especially during the COVID context. So we did weekly supporting emotional support, weekly chats on Zoom, just to help each other. And once one of the family members of one of the persons passed away back in Brazil due to COVID situation, and then the group really support each other and became a safe and supporting group that was able also to support others, not only from that group, but we realized how important that support was for that person, and we wanted to support other people from our community. And my my realization and my experience participating at the Welcoming City Task Force was that there are support from other organizations, and we can be creative and use online tools to connect those people as well in a meaningful way. For example, last year I participated in one storytelling workshop that was led by Here Magazine, and it was amazing. From that workshop, I made meaningful connections with people that helped me later at my work place. When I moved work to work, I met the person that also participated in that storytelling workshop, and that person helped me to settle in this new job position. So once I realized that my Brazilian community was also in need for that in-depth engagement within the community, I reached out to Here Magazine and to the Greater Victoria Public Library to host once storytelling workshop for the Brazilian community, but this time for the Portuguese-speaking community, not only for Brazilians, but opening for other cultural groups also to participate in that storytelling workshop. And it was fascinating because came people from Portugal, came refugees from Angola, came people that lived in other countries and had the language and wanted to practice the language. And I saw those in-depth engagements between individuals through a storytelling workshop. And those are the initiatives that are dear to my heart, and I want to continue applying in the city, but to a wider community. And I think that's it.
Thank you. And you know, council is committed, and the mayor is here. She has shown leadership and has been champion and advocate for this work, and it was such a privilege to co-chair. And this actually strategy is going to council tomorrow, and this is just the beginning, the roadmap. You know, Victoria is becoming dynamic, and our city is shifting. So this would be a living document, you know, like a starting point where all partners and community could have a pointing start, but also starting point for change where different voices are included. Chris, and what you heard from Nora, Danielle, in terms of, you know, lack of information and not having sense of belonging and being in a lot of resources and communities, but there's not a lot of collaboration together. So you as a Here magazine, but also as a immigrant joining to the Welcome City, which is the starting point for this roadmap, and having your voice in there, how did it impacted your life and even professionally in terms of your work, and what were some things you took away being in part of this task force to this point?
Thank you, Shamarki. One of the things that I realized from doing this work is, one, change is, we have to be intentional. And I summarize the work that we've done on this task force basically as a two-pronged approach. Reduce the barriers or eliminate them if we can, and increase access. Because as many of our panelists have said, it's not because the programs aren't there, and it's not because people don't need the programs. It's because no one knows how to get to them. So for me, what I've personally realized, how I've been impacted, because in my role, I'm able to see not only my lived experience, but the lived experience of so many others. And Victoria, it's already a diverse society. We already have just so many cultures present here, so many different communities. And the beauty of that is we really have the opportunity to embrace a truly multicultural society. But change happens through people. Policies and systems support change, but it's really up to the individual, each and every one of us, to actually intentionally do things to bring us the city and the society that we wish to see. So for me personally, what I've done, I've decided to be a little bit more bold in all my actions, because many people, when they're moving, relocating, you consider your finances, you consider housing, you consider education. Very rarely do people, when they're moving to a new city, think they'll have a challenge in finding community. It's just not one of the things that you consider, primarily because it's not one of those tangible things that you can say, okay, I need X amount in the bank to make this move. I need to ensure that I can provide for my family by having this type of employment. My children need to go to this type of school. It's rarely ever considered, how will I integrate? How will I find that space where I truly fit and you're not wondering for years to come, did I make a mistake in relocating? And that's the part that it takes courage. It takes just someone extending a smile. It takes someone to say, hey, would you like to have a coffee? Someone that you don't normally know. Because as human beings, we tend to gravitate to our likeness, our own cultures. And it takes that bit of courage to move out of our comfort zone. I remember when I moved here, one of the hardest things for me to do was to find somewhere to get my hair done. And I was in the pharmacy and I was literally stalking a person to say, she has hair like mine. I wonder where she does her hair. But I had two choices. I could leave the pharmacy and not have the information, or I could say, hey, where do you get your hair done? This was someone that I didn't know, but it really took me being bold enough and her being kind enough to share the information. So it really is a two-pronged approach. So for me, how it has impacted me, I've actually decided to step out of my comfort zone because you have to. And what I've learned is that people are willing to help. In many instances, people are willing to help. And I noticed that you touched on it, Counselor, when you spoke on the amount of volunteers that came forward to partner in the mentorship program that you launched. At Here Magazine, we recently launched a program called the Incubator, which pairs a professional with a newcomer just to guide them through the different industries. Now, it's a wonderful program where in many instances, the qualifications are the same globally. If the organizations, the jobs are the same, the differences are usually culture. And just someone saying, hey, this is the way things are done. These are the organizations that you probably need to partner with. These are the networking events that you may need to attend. And it's those little things that create the opportunities that actually bring change. So for me, that is being intentional to widen my circle, being intentional to actually drive the change that I wish to see. Because if we each do it, if each of us does that, then we'll have a more welcoming community, which leads to a more welcoming society.
Yeah, I'm still reflecting on what you said, and what stood out for me is intentional.
Yeah.
I mean, every work we do, policy, taking cookie for your neighbor, everything, if you put intentional, it does take energy, it does take effort. Knowing that effort and energy is really what creates community and being intentional. And I remember, and I was in a conference when I was in the immigrant sector work. I think it was 2013. And I was listening to Senator Radna, who is a senator now. She's immigrant herself, and she's one of my role models when it comes to immigration and things like that. And one thing she said struck me. if I remember correctly, she said integration is not one-way street, it's not two-way street, it's a highway traffic. And to me, that really hit me. And the concept was everyone is integration agent, the bus driver, the waiter, the landlord, the professor, the policeman, the police officer, everyone in our community is the teacher, is integration agent. So how do you, and again, that's why this roadmap is a starting point for communities and organizations seeing themselves. So going back to you, Chris, and what you and sharing the mentorship program for Here Magazine, what is one action in the action plan that in the document that would speak to that, and you think going forward that you could partnership with the city to deliver that?
I think one of the key actions that struck out for us as an organization was to partner with different organizations that had programs where that would provide mentorship opportunities for different people. That's directly aligned with currently what we do. And it's a beautiful program that just keeps growing. And a huge component of that program is actually cultural intelligence. And we've partnered with UVic to deliver that piece. So trained CQ facilitators work with our mentees to actually help them to identify some of the biases and the different cultural traits that we come with, because we show up based on our cultural bias, and everyone has a little bit, some of it. So just navigating the workplace, the Canadian workplace, may be different from home. And of course, some people rate a little higher, some a little lower, but there are techniques and there are strategies that can be taught and learned to help people to navigate those. I've personally learned so much just being a fly on the wall, because I lead the program. So just being a fly on the wall, I've personally learned so much about my own bias and how I show up in the workplace. So I liked what Trish said when she just started, which is you don't know what you don't know. And that is true for all of us. And of particular importance is that each of us needs to realize that. So if there are organizations that are already doing the work, then I think it's in the best interest of the city to actually partner with those organizations, because the framework is already in place. The planning has already been done. It's ready to just get bigger and better, in my estimation.
Thank you, Chris. And I want to build more on the point that Trish said. And coming back to you, Trish, that Chris now reminded me. And could you say knowing what was, could you repeat it again? Knowing.
I think what Trish said was, you don't know what you don't know.
Okay, don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And building on that, Trish, the question I have for you is that how did this, being part of the task force, you've done listening workshops for the city in terms of the portal engagement, and the residents of Victoria participated, what Welcome City looks like for them. And what is one thing that you know now, or let me rephrase it, you will do now that you've been through this process?
That's an excellent question. And that's an excellent question. It has impacted my work for sure. And when we talk about biases and unconscious biases and checking ourselves and being reflective, that is probably the most significant piece. So for Rachel and I, it was critical, and our lived experience is informed this work. Rachel's mixed race from Trinidad, and I'm moved here from a different province. Having that, I'm a white Canadian, and so we had different perspectives that we brought to it. But I didn't know what I didn't know, and I won't ever know some of those things that other people experience. And so it was trying to find a really practical way to check that, to check myself, to be reflective, and then how can I share that thinking? What can I do and to help my friends? What can I do to help my colleagues? What is that provocative thing that I maybe can do that just is for them self-reflective as well? So I started testing it on friends and family, and really I said, so, you know, what percentage of people in your world, professionally or personally, are non-Caucasian? And it wasn't to necessarily hear their answer. It was more about, you know, are there decisions that you made or choices that you made, same as myself? Did I make decisions or choices to be with people or groups based on what I look like, what culture I came from, what language I spoke? And if I did, why did I do that? And just pause, just create some pause. So I'm going to continue to ask myself that, because being involved in this project has reminded me of that importance. Just pause, check our biases, check to see how and why we're making some decisions, and just when you can, reach out and be honest if you're not comfortable, or be honest if, you know what, you say, you know what, I think I need some help here. I think I have to have a conversation. I think I need some coaching. I think I need somebody to, you know, shed some light on something that I have no idea about. Because again, this is all about people with lived experiences. You're going to see in the action plan that there's, in the community outcomes, it is newcomers inform, newcomers participate, newcomers design. Because, and then you're going to also see in partnership, because it requires newcomers and longtime residents coming together. I know I'm going to say this again and again, but I think it's really important that we do remember that. And so we all have this role that we can play in defining what our better future is. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do for myself. And this project has reminded me of that importance.
And thank you. And I've been trying to, as a chair, concentrate at the chat box. And there is one question that came in terms which builds up to our conversation, that ICA VERX has been a partnership that has been working to bring together various programs. And the VERX and ICA and other organizations are partners of this roadmap. And this is not to duplicate what is already there, rather than build a roadmap where the city plays a leadership. Also, we deliver a lot of services to the residents of Victoria, and a lot of residents of Victoria are also immigrants. And so this is in a way that, as I was alluding earlier, that is a collaborative work, and we've developed and we implemented with task force, including settlement agencies and the chambers of business and other ethnocultural and people with lived experience. And the idea is just for a roadmap so that everyone could see themselves and encouraging voices to come. And the challenge of this work is we building this roadmap for the residents of Victoria and City of Victoria. And while settlement agencies work the whole region and which touch so many municipalities, and that is sometimes a challenge. And the hope is that if this becomes successful, then it could be a prototype. It could be success stories other municipalities could implement and work all the stakeholders in their communities. Coming to you, Danielle, and Then I will come to you, then we can have discussion between you, Nora, and Chris for 5 minutes, then we will open questions and to the floor. I want to give time to the mayor to give her reflection as well. What is one of the things that is on council's agenda tomorrow is also a motion from myself and the mayor to continue this task force so that there is also a framework of accountability, which is in the document is built, but also continuing the task force to really foresee the implementation. But there's a lot of participants today and a lot of people are watching. What would you ask if stakeholders, business leaders, or community or resident or senior centers or neighborhood associations, and which a lot of neighborhood association has played a role, huge role in holding events, neighborhood block parties, multicultural events, and giving a lot of food services and all other services I cannot list. What is one thing you ask others in our community to be more welcoming and to newcomers?
Thank you, Shamak, for the question, because this is very important. As Trish said, one of the things that everybody can do is ask yourself about your own bias and ask yourself how many non-Caucasians do you have in your group. And on the same way, I ask to newcomers as well, how many Caucasians do you have as friends in your groups? And that it's the number, it's unfortunately low as well. So one of the things that I will ask not only my community, but the whole community in Victoria is to be open to the new, because the new, it's what brings diversity and it's what brings new ideas and new ways of seeing life and new ways of doing stuff. And by adopting new ways is where you find the innovation, and innovation in activities, innovation for job opportunities, and innovation for ways to connect as well, and being open to that new approach. And not only that, but participate in those events. For example, for example, welcoming days for newcomers. Long-term residents should come and participate in those events as well, and introduce yourself to other people and smile to people and engage in conversations with those people so everybody feels welcome. And another thing that it's on my realm that I can do is to use my skills and to use my profession to support the implementation of this strategy. Professionally, I am an evaluator of development projects, so I can contribute more as part of the group that will implement, support the implementation and the accountability of this strategy through my profession, through my professional experience, which is literally monitoring and evaluating those projects to be able to show with academic evidence what worked and what didn't work, so you can develop new projects or build from that pilot to other cities to scale up, not only to Victoria, but to Greater Victoria and to BC, but based on academic knowledge and clear evidence. So the invitation that I would like to put for the whole society is to reflect a little bit and see from your own life and your own professional life and skills, how can you use that to contribute to other newcomers as well, for the welcoming of other newcomers.
Yeah, 100%. And you're definitely right that when we build communities, first of all, thank you to all the tax for volunteering your time, energy, and without pay, and really commitment to improve your community and to create more inclusive community. And you're absolutely right. We do not bring only lived experience. We bring our expertise, our knowledge, and many things. You could see, and before 2018, City of Victoria Council, the conversations has changed, because the fabric of the council members have changed. So even in every space, when diverse opinion perspectives come in, then even how we shape policy and design communities and cities and neighborhoods change, because you bring with you not only your expertise, but all the communities that you care. And just before I go others, you mentioned really good point in terms of expanding your network, getting uncomfortable and building relationships and getting out of your comfort zone. And that's what the Welcome City is, just to really initiatives that to counter the hate, to counter anti-immigrant sentiments, to counter anti-Semitic, Islamophobia, anti-Blackness. All these things now has grown more than ever before. And recently what happened in southern border, and the election of Trump, some things came, it grow more. And the saying, if you let if we're silent about the ghost, then the ghost keep growing. And this Welcome City is saying, we see the ghost, we're not gonna let that grow in our community. We're gonna work to make it better. And that is why such leaders came together to really do this work, and it takes collaborative. So Noura, and what is one thing you would ask our community as we move forward, to really not allow that ghost to grow within our community, and say, we see you and we're going to do something and create more welcoming and inclusive community?
Well, I think the idea would be to reach out to, just a minute, I think to reach out to the other societies and agencies to see what's going on, see how we can, do more programs. We are doing things at our center to help, like seniors we've been laminating their vaccination cards for them. They would come and have a paper copy because they don't carry a cell phone. So we would laminate their cards, and then we put their ID on the back of the card so that they only have to show one card when they go to an establishment. So that's been very, very popular. And they come in to get, and that way we're encouraging them to get their vaccinations and stuff like that. So word of mouth, I think we're, building a more welcoming city. But what we really need to do is to find out what the other agencies are doing so that we can also do the same thing, so we can expand on it and make Victoria a truly welcoming city.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Noura. And this is a starting point at this roadmap, because it's a long journey to really imagine the city we want to see, and better is possible. Chris, I give you the last word, then, and the participants think about what question you want to ask. So I will entertain 2 or 3 questions so that I can give more time to the mayor's reflection, who was a partner in this work. Chris, and we hear, and the community are listening, and agencies, organizations, other cities, and what would you ask the community to do to create a city that you aspire?
one thing I would say is be intentional about widening your circle. We all have our circles, we all have our little groups that we feel comfortable in, but just be intentional about being open to just welcome one more. If each of us welcomes one more person, the impact that we can make will be great. And I know there is a lot of talk now about inclusion and being a diverse society and how inclusive the society is. And it really does not require any great acts of grandeur. It's just those small things that help someone else feel at home. A smile, a hello. Volunteering it does not have to be any great skill, just just sharing your time. And it may be a concept that's new to many. I know it was very new to me when I came to Victoria, because you help people that you know. And from Jamaica, I guess, being from such a small country, you know everyone, I guess. But it was new to me that you just give your time to help just anyone. But there's so many organizations that need help that just requires just someone else, a helping hand. And it's a great way to network. It's a great way to meet new people, volunteering. So that would be my one request from everyone. Just be intentional about widening your circle. And an easy way to do that is to volunteer. Sign up for programs. It can be programs that you're interested in. Everyone is interested in something. So just be intentional about widening your circle. That would be my one request.
Thank you. And you reminded me this story. One day, a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy picking something up and gently throwing into the ocean. Approaching the boy, the man asked, "What are you doing?" Then the youth replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The surf is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they will die." "Son," the man said, "don't you realize there are miles and miles of beach and hundreds of starfish? You can't make a difference." After listening politely, the boy bent down, picked up another starfish and threw it back to the surf. Then smiling at the man, he said, "I made a difference for that one." And I think that is what I remembered. And at least even one person, even your neighbor, if you know their name, you know, and yeah, so that struck me. So I'm looking at the comments, and Esther, I agree. Sport is one way to really create a welcoming. And when I was new, I was part of a basketball team. Email me. I would want to learn more. So please directly email to me. Any question? But I would like to encourage the city and all. So thank you so much. This has been, we're not leaving yet. I'm just thanking you. You know, we're still here. We have 10 minutes and we're going to take our 10 minutes, right? So I'm really like, it has been wonderful working with you guys, you know, and I look forward and I believe the council shares the priorities as well. And tomorrow this is going to council, and if it's approved, then I look forward working with you, with the community alongside. Trish, it was amazing doing this work with you along all the leaders, you and Rachel.
Thank you.
You know, I made new friends, you know, it has been real wonderful. Nora, I've heard of you, but I get to know you as we do this work, you know, and having that relationship right now is I'm such grateful, you know, and I look forward having tea with you, coming to the center. Daniela, you almost challenge me with the height, so it's good to really know you before and now be able to do this work with you. And I look forward working alongside. Chris, where should I start? Like I consider myself here family, here magazine family, and always attending the potlucks. It's amazing, and doing this work with all the other task forces that are not here. They've gave us the green light to do this session. They've give us feedback. Some of them might be listening, but I just want to give shout out to all of them, amazing leaders, all those, have given their work. So the question is just, yeah. So Mayor, I will hand it to you. And then there are 3 questions online. Maybe perhaps one. Yeah, I will hand it to you, and then you
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm here. Thank you, Councillor Dubois. A round of applause for such great facilitation. Yeah, we're all, there's about 10 of us here in the Victoria Conference Centre tuned in. And so thank you very much. You did a great job facilitating. I will just make some reflections and then some wrap up comments. And then Councillor Dubois, if there's anything else you want to say, and then Carol from the Victoria Foundation and Mary from Canadian Urban Institute want to just say a few closing words for the entire conference as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time this evening, and all of you, all of the panelists. We've had 3 remarkable days here, and many of the sessions have focused on centering and giving voice to Black, Indigenous, people of color, whether it's on economies or food security, just a whole range of issues that have really, I think, this panel weaves them together so well. And I just really want to tie a few things together that we've been hearing throughout the sessions that you've said as well. So Ruth Mojid was here earlier today talking on a panel on inclusive economies, and she works with the Inclusion Project. And what she said is that policy development is going to create ineffective policy unless it has people who are there with the experience developing the policy. And that came up very early in this conversation tonight, that the Welcoming City Strategy and Action Plan has literally been developed by people who are working in the community on these issues, and with people with lived experience of coming to Victoria and feeling in some ways a sense of non-belonging. And so just really want to kind of nod to all of you for having the courage to walk alongside us for the past year and help us develop this policy, which is essentially your policy. And that's the second point that I want to make in reflection. And Nora, you just did such a good job of illustrating how your society is already taking it. The council hasn't even approved it, and it's already happening in the community. And Daniela and Carice, I know you're doing the same. So that's the benefit of policy development that happens with the community, is that it's not left to the institution of the city to do all the work. We're all doing it together. So I think that's really strong, and wanted to just bring Ruth's sense back into this. Another thing that came up in a number of panels, particularly last night, we had a panel of Muslim women talking about their experiences in Victoria. And Aisha, one of the women, said very much similar to Carice, what you've said, is just have a cup of coffee with somebody that you wouldn't normally have a cup of coffee with. That is the first step to building a welcoming city, a welcoming community, and to creating kind of joy and belonging in our own lives. And I think there were a couple of other sessions where this just have a cup of coffee came up. And so it's interesting that it's come up again here as well. And that is something that everybody can do. And if you don't have enough money for a cup of coffee, then maybe the city can create a fund for people to have coffee together as part of this strategy. I mean, honestly, right? That is the most basic thing. So yeah, I really wanted to emphasize that is a thread that's been coming up. And then finally, there's been a lot of talk here that we are I mean at CUI Victoria, that we're in a period of immense possibility and immense change. All of the things that have become unleashed and unraveled, and all the potential, it can't be shoved back into a box. That's there's enough velocity, and we've seen that here at CUI Victoria with so many different people working on so many different levels. To Mary, what was the word earlier that Narinder said. We're toppling. She said we're toppling. Yeah, we're taking things apart and putting them back together. And Narinder was here on a panel again on inclusive economies. So really, the work that you've shared tonight is part of this larger fabric that is what the new Victoria looks like for the next couple of decades. And just really wanted to weave all of that together and to thank you for taking the time to share with us. Not only this evening, but for the past year and for the next 3 years to come, if council approves our continued task force. Shamarke, before I go to Carol, I want to ask if there's anything further you'd like to say, and then I'll hand it over to Carol from Victoria Foundation.
Yeah, just one thing. I remember June 2017, and at Bandora entrance in front of City Hall, you've asked me, Mayor, have you ever thought about running an office? Then I said, let's have a coffee.
Yeah, that's true. I bought you, but you don't drink coffee, so I took you for tea and convinced you to run for city council.
Bandora at the Habit Coffee, yes.
Yeah.
And here I am today. So
here you are today.
You never know where that coffee might take you.
Beautiful. That is a beautiful way to conclude. Thank you so much, Shamarke. Carol, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Mayor Helps. And it's just been such a great way, I feel, to end our 15 sessions over the 3 days with CUIX. And I know at Victoria Foundation, with the launch of Vital Signs earlier this month, what we really want to do is have conversations. What does the data mean? What do we do about it? And I feel like there have been so many threads over these last 3 days to end with the session around, how do we welcome newcomers and what does it mean to belong? It just really feels like it holds together the series of conversations over the day. And really loved hearing from the speakers tonight around the sense of empowerment that we all have something we can contribute and do, and that we all can do small things. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. And I think sometimes over the 3 days of conversation, there are moments of just the issues are so big. And yet what I felt over and over again was this sense of that we have so much here in our region to build on, that so much is already happening. This change is happening. As Mayor Help said, it's sort of like, it's like we can't go back. And so I feel that great energy and excitement of how we can move forward together. In a session earlier today around inclusive economies, Christina Clark talked about the concept of well-being and sort of what is community well-being, and in this more holistic sense. And if we can really change and think about that in a holistic sense, that we can unlock the human potential in our community and how everyone has gifts to bring. And I feel like I heard that again tonight. And so I want to give a shout out for one opportunity that we have through the Victoria Foundation right now through our Neighborhood Small Grants, which is a program here where any individual in our community who has an idea to connect and engage with neighbors or to create a sense of belonging can apply for funding up to $500 to maybe have that cup of coffee in a block party style, or you share your skills and your expertise around online painting or a yoga workshop. And so it's that sense again that everyone has something to offer. And I'm really grateful to the partners at Canadian Urban Institute and the city for not only what will come sort of these conversations, but what will come out of it and the work that we have to do together. So thanks so much. And with that, I'll hand it over to Mary.
Wow, there's always this moment where you realize, oh, we're not ready to be done. We feel like we're just getting started, but we've had an extraordinary 3 days here, and I just want to thank this panel and this topic to be the thing that we would finish our tour with you on, and all about welcoming and hospitality. I always feel that cities are fundamentally about this. They're about making room for everyone. And we say at CUI that urbanism is for everyone, but this act of hospitality, that's actually what happens, how community is formed. I love the statement that was made earlier, that cities are what was it? I wrote it down. It takes a community to make a city. I love that. And it takes many, many communities to make a city, doesn't it? And we're so appreciative of this time together and the thoughtfulness with which everyone has participated. I've been taking lots of side notes here, listening to the sessions, but also just how resonant what you've talked about in terms of the experience of Victoria, how relevant that is to the rest of the country. And you're our 5th CUI local. It's a new program that we just started during the pandemic, actually. And we felt it was important. Obviously, we want to say we need to listen to the local, but we want other locals to listen to other locals. That we think that, Canada does vertical very well, from the community level to the city municipal level to the provincial level to the federal level. We're oriented this way, but really communities are actually oriented this way. And so what we've been trying to do is build that connective tissue, those horizontal relationships, that we have all sorts of obstacles to make it more difficult. We have the Rocky Mountains, we have vast geography, we have linguistic differences, we have historical differences, we have ancestral differences, we have cultural differences, and all that kind of thing. But all of it together ends up, I love that you cited Senator Amidvar, who we know. She's always been making that case, as you said, Councillor, about how cities actually and communities of Canada together make up this remarkable mix. And we're just very appreciative of the time that Victorians have put in here. We've had a whole range of sessions, and we have meetings that are going on the side. And you know how it always works, all those side conversations. It's harder to do when you're on Zoom, to have side conversations, but people still manage. They find other ways to have little chat groups and different kinds of things, and they meet up in different kinds of ways. And I hope that this isn't the end. I hope it's just the beginning of sharing the different and the variety of stories of what's working in Victoria, what you're working on, what the successes you've already had, the challenges that are ahead, and what do you think is next in terms of what you can tackle, both for your own community and your communities, but also to benefit urban and communities and across the country. So I just want to add my thanks to the Victoria Foundation and to the mayor and to the city. They've both of these organizations have put enormous effort and resources into this, and it's been a great partnership, I would say, between civil society, that's us, the charity, philanthropy, that's the Victoria Foundation, and then local government, the City of Victoria. And let's hope that all those other sectors, other levels of orders of government, other participants that make cities what they are, will continue to listen and benefit from all the wisdom and experience that you've been sharing. So I just want to sign off and say we're going to post all that we can. We'll be posted on site. We're going to produce some kind of a report. That's going to be tough to do, can I just say, with all the different traditions that have been expressed here, oral traditions and written traditions and all that stuff. We're going to find a way to tell the story with you of Victoria this far. And the great thing about cities is they're never over. They live on, and as you will. So we look forward to just reporting the story so far. It should be Victoria so far, and we'll do that with great enthusiasm and appreciation to you for helping us with this last several days and what's ahead. So thanks very much again to the foundation and to the mayor and the city and her colleagues for being so gracious, and to you folks for spending time on a Wednesday night, and for the rest of Canada who's trying to go to bed, for listening in. It's really been great to be with you. So thanks, everybody.